Hello, and welcome to the Couples Expert Podcast. This is Stuart Fensterheim. This episode is sponsored by the 2 Days and 7 Conversations weekend, a weekend that will transform your relationship and possibly save your life.
Are you married or in a committed relationship looking for real advice on having love and enriching your relationship? You are in the right place. Welcome to the Couples Expert with Stuart Fensterheim.
In this episode, we are going to be talking about a very important question, at least I think for us guys. The question that we ask is, will our marriage destroy our sex life? Now, why do we ask that question? We ask that question because it's really something that a lot of people talk about, at least the men of the relationship. What they say is that you have unmarried sex and you have married sex. Now, they're really two sides of the same coin. The first thing we have to do is define, what do we mean by unmarried sex? Unmarried sex for a lot of people is the sex that you only dream of. You think about it, you have a relationship with someone in your life, and the concept is all you're doing is screwing. That's it. Every day of your relationship, you spend your time, you spend your money with one purpose, which is getting laid. Now, married sex. What do we know about married sex? Married sex is the sex that people talk about when they walk up to you when you're about to get married and they said, "Congratulations, I really feel sorry for you." And you have a look that says, what are they saying? And your friend says, you do realize that getting married means your sex life is over. You don't want to believe it, though. And you say, that's them. Maybe they have a wife like that, but my wife isn't. We're very sexually active. We love touching each other. We're emotionally connected. We share everything. We're friends. She's my confidant. Everything is so wonderful. That's not going to happen to me. But then there's that other side. The side that says, what if? What if they're right? Can I do this? The anxiety starts from the pit of your stomach and raises right to your throat. And you dismiss it. And you say, you know what? We're going to be fine. But then come the celebrations, the bachelor party that your friends put together, because they want you to have that one last hurrah before you get married. It's like a nightmare. You have the hope and the dream to spend your life with this person because you want it to be special. And yet, the people that you love, your buddies, your college friends, your brothers, all the married people you know, come up to you and begin to say, I'm sorry, but you do realize you're only going to have sex with one person the rest of your life. Now, what does that mean? Only having sex with one person. Generally, we think about that and we say to ourselves, that's okay. I can do that. This is this attractive woman that I met, and we've been wonderfully engaged in wonderful sex in bed. I'm okay with that. But at the bachelor party, and my bachelor party was an interesting one. Let me describe the scene. My friends decided to take me down to an area. I was living outside of Baltimore. And we went to a place called The Block. I don't know how many of you are from that part of the country. But if you've ever been there, The Block is an area of strip club after strip club after strip club after cold girl place after strip club after strip club after strip club. If you wanted a strip club, this is where we go. And it was the first time I ever saw a lap dance. Now, a lap dance is where a naked lady sits on your lap and rubs her butt all over your penis. And what you try as hard as you can do is not to get hard. But it usually doesn't work very well. So here we were, getting lap dances and also watching women strip. Now, let me explain this woman who was on stage. This woman on stage was incredibly beautiful, and she did something that stuck with me most of my life. She took a cigarette and lit it. She smoked it. But where she smoked it was a very particular place. She took the cigarette from her mouth and stuck it in her vagina, and she was able to blow smoke rings with the cigarette. I was amazed. Now, I was not very experienced sexually, other than spending some time with my fiancé at the time. But I started to think, wow, that was impressive. And all of us were sort of in awe. And I began to think, they don't know what they're talking about. That's what married sex is going to be. I'm going to have a partner that will do that. My wife will be one of those women that will be able to do whatever it might be. And we will have such an exciting sex life. She'll be smoking cigarettes and blowing puffs of rings of smoke. We'll be doing sex in chairs, sex swings. We'll be going to sex shops together. We will be doing all the exciting things that we need to do. I was just so excited. I will be having the most incredible sex with my new wife. And I couldn't wait to tell her about it. So after the party was over, I called my fiancée up and I told her about it. I think you know what's about to happen. It did not go well. She was irritated, agitated, and said, "How dare you? How dare you go to a place like that? Who are these friends of yours that would take you there on the night before your wedding?" And she started to cry. "You weren't thinking about me," she said. "You were with another woman, staring at another woman, and not thinking about me on the night before our wedding." And she said, "Do you know what her friends did? They went for tea and cake. How dare you? Don't you ever do that again, and promise me no matter how long we're married, you won't ever step foot in another strip club." I was aghast. I didn't know what to do. And what started ringing in my head, oh my God, it's starting right now. The sex life is ending right now. We're not going to have this exciting adventure sexually. I'm going to be trapped in a place with someone that's just going to be mad at me if I want anything sexually. And you begin to say to yourself, I'm just going to have to stop talking about it. But there's that part of you that says, no, I want an exciting sex life. But what do? I wasn't that experienced. Things changed, though. And when we began to talk about what do we each want from our intimate life, sexually, emotionally, physically, in all ways, you have to be able to have those kinds of conversations. What you learn is that your sexual relationship is not a science experiment. The sexual relationship that you have with your partner is one in which the two of you learn really how to get to know one another. You begin to talk authentically and vulnerably with one another. You share the experiences that you both have and both want. And what you decide is that giving to one another is about sharing an experience with each other that brings you joy both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The question, though, is how the hell do you do that? No one ever taught me how to have this exciting sexual relationship with my wife. What you have to do and what ends up happening is it becomes trial and error. And the trial isn't always so much fun. For me, though, what was one of the advantages is that I was able to use my experience as a counselor to try to help that. And I ended up going to Canada. And in Canada, I attended a workshop on sexuality. And so many people don't have the luxury of being able to do this, but it opened my world and it allowed me to really understand what sex is about. Before I tell you a little bit about that, though, what I want to do is talk a little bit about the sponsors of the show, because this show is being sponsored by the 2 Days and 7 Conversations weekend. This is a weekend that truly can change your life and transform your relationship. But how can it do that? What I want you to think about is the following. Think about your honeymoon. Other than the sexual part now, we all know that's fun and exciting, but how much time did you truly spend talking? Most people would say not very much. During this weekend, this 2 Days and 7 Conversation weekend, the two of you will focus all of your time, emotion, and love on one another. You'll be taught all the essential steps to have the two of you truly feeling that you have a partner who's invested in your marriage and, more importantly, in you, both in an educational format and private sessions. The educational format will be a group format where you'll learn all the steps necessary to have that healthy, authentic, vulnerable relationship. And then in private sessions, the two of you will devote the time and energy needed to finally let go of some of that awful past pains that continue to come up. You guys will learn how to really repair these injuries so that both of you will acknowledge being there for one another. Don't just take my word on this. Go to the website, www.thecouplesexperts.com. Look at the reviews. I just recently got a new one of someone who said that recently her husband had passed away. They had attended this weekend in 2015, and she just thanked me because she said the time from the point of the weekend to the point of where he died of a stroke changed their last days together. Both of them felt so loved with one another. Although she was sad, she was so thrilled that they attended, so that their final days together was filled with so much love. So please check it out. So back to the episode. We were talking about my trip to Canada, where it was a sex therapy workshop, and what we began to talk about, and this goes back quite a number of years, I think it was in the 90s, and we learned all the latest research on sexuality and helping couples really have a relationship that has both people feeling really alive in terms of their intimacy. However, for me, it was a little bit different because I get pretty neurotic in these kinds of situations. Because what I can't help doing is comparing my relationship with what we're talking about. And we were talking about all sorts of things. And I was learning all these new names and new situations. I learned what fisting was. I don't know how many of you have heard what fisting is, but just the thought of it just sort of repulsed me. Because what fisting is taking your fist and going inside your woman's vagina. It felt like I was beating the hell out of it. I couldn't see myself doing that, but yet they talked about this. They talked about role plays. They talked about threesomes. They talked about all these different positions. And I was fairly happy with what I was doing, but by the time I left, I thought I was like behind the eight ball, and my wife probably was very unhappy because she thought she had a partner that was virile and interested in sex. I wasn't doing any of this stuff. Do I have to? What does it mean if I don't want to? What if it meant that she'd have an affair because I wasn't sort of virile enough, or I wasn't doing enough things to keep her satisfied? What do I have to do to satisfy her? They tell me I have to do these things, but it just doesn't feel right. The craziness about that started going round and round in my head, and I began to feel so inadequate. And so often, what happens with most of us, our brain gets in the way. We start thinking about all these things that we think we ought to be doing. And what it does is it raises our own insecurities about who we are. That it makes it feel that sex is about an action, about an activity that you're doing, and that you're supposed to be like John Holmes. I don't know how many of you know who John Holmes is, but it's a little bit of self-disclosure here, but I once saw this porno flick called Deep Throat. Deep Throat was with John Holmes. He's this big guy and had the biggest dick you ever saw. And what about it? He could use it, and he turned on. Linda Lovelace was all excited and was doing this and was doing that. I couldn't do the things he did. And yet, those are some of the comparisons we sometimes make. And when we make those comparisons, we feel small. We don't feel like we'll ever measure up. But here's the problem, guys and ladies. You don't talk about that stuff. You don't even realize sometimes that is going on. Because the things that get unsaid will hurt you so much more than the things that do get said. So I went through that week, and I came home, and I began to share some of this with my wife, but I wasn't sure I could share what's inside my head, because I remembered the time I brought stuff up before about the strip club and what happened there. How could I talk about this with her without her seeing me as some perverted person wanting to do these weird kinds of things? And I'm not talking about fisting here. I'm talking about some of the other things that they talked about. Kegel exercises and doing things to make sure that you can last longer, or not worrying about premature ejaculation, and all these things that we read about, think about, and dream about. And yet, one of the things I did learn about in Canada was that how important it is for each of us to know our bodies. That masturbation is okay. And that lots of women masturbate. I didn't know that lots of women did that. Do I ask my partner now, does she masturbate? Will she accept that from me? And that mutual masturbation is sometimes a great way to learn about how you turn your partner on. But what if my partner didn't want to? What if she thought touching herself or touching me in that way means that I am perverted? So the question that then comes up for me is, did I marry a prude? Is that what I've gotten myself caught into? Is that what they meant when back then when they talked about once you're married, sorry, your sex life is no longer going to be part of your life? But I don't think I married a prude. We play tricks on ourselves so much. No one ever told me I was supposed to ask these kinds of questions before you got married. But then it hit me. I really am in a wet dream. Guys, you know what I mean? That I am with a partner who cares about me, who loves me, who wants me to be happy, who has been willing to do just about anything I want to just please me, to have me feel like I'm a happily married man. That is an incredible feeling, that you're with someone in your life that cares about your happiness. They care about theirs, but they care about yours as well. And they would be willing to do whatever it takes to have a relationship where both of you feel like the luckiest people alive because you're in each other's life. Don't have to have inhibitions. Don't have to feel restricted. That the two of us can make the rules of our sex life and other parts of our lives. That I could be married, and what my marriage has done is given me my fantasy girl, where we make the rules. She's my sexual plaything, and I'm her sexual plaything. All I have to do is just love her, as I always have, because she's my confidant. She's not superficial. We have worked so hard through the years, and it's gotten better and better and better when we've been open with one another, and that I could truly be myself. Now, here's the key. I'm 62 years old. We are in this world together because we're not screwing, we're not fucking, we're making love. And that's a sharing of our bodies and our minds and our hearts. And if you do that with your partner, if you truly see them as a life partner, a life friend, then what you get to realize is monogamy is the turn on. Monogamy allows you and your partner to have a joyful life with the ups and downs and sideways and whatever, that says to one another, holding each other, sharing each other's life, sharing your love, is what makes this marriage a turn on. And boy, am I lucky to be in a marriage that turns both of us on. We have the best relationship around, and I have an exciting playmate with married sex, which is the best sex either of us has ever had. The key, though, here is authenticity, vulnerability, friendship, affection. Having a love life that is not about a penis and a vagina. Having a love life is about your brain and your partner's brain and your heart and your partner's heart and your soul and your partner's soul and your friendship and your partner's friendship, that the two of you have a shared experience of living a life through the years, loving one another, and being with someone that you truly can believe has your back and you have theirs, and the two of you having a wonderful life of humor and love and sharing. That's what we need to have a relationship that is close and connected, that will have you feeling in this big wide world where there's so many people that you could come across, that you found one another. And you found one another because the two of you are so compatible. And you've done the work. And the two of you have done it together with the whole concept that what we need is to have a relationship in which both of us feel important to one another, trust each other, and know that we're there for each other. And that you've done it. What an incredible feeling. The problem, though, is so often people don't do their part to making their relationship work. They look to their partner and say, if only she did this, or if only he did this. Don't be that kind of person. Be the one that is the captain of your own ship. You're the one that makes sure that both of you are in a relationship that is the healthiest, happiest, and most fulfilling in all ways, including your sex life. Thank you for joining me again on this journey of love, where we talk about the things that are necessary to have a relationship where you feel like the luckiest man and luckiest woman alive because your partner's in it. Take care and stay connected. This episode was sponsored by the 2 Days and 7 Conversations weekend. For more information on the weekend, go to the website, which is www.thecouplesexperts.com. There you could actually sign up for Stuart's daily notes. In addition, check out the Couples Expert Facebook fan page. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.